In this video, I'm going to talk about why aim assist is not actually broken. Now, before you guys roast me in the comments, I just want to say that I'm primarily a mouse and keyboard player, but I can also pick up a controller and play on that as well. Before you make any hasty accusations, I ask you to please watch the video in its entirety so you can understand where I'm coming from and understand why I'm making this argument. Now, if you go on to enjoy the video, please be sure to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel, especially if you're new. If you also do that, I'd appreciate it if you hit the notification bell. That way you never miss a new video from me. Now, before we get into my main points, I just want to start off by saying that I'm comparing controller players on a PC to mouse and keyboard players that also play on PC. The reason I'm not comparing controller console players to the PC players is not because I think the aim assist on a console is inherently weaker. In fact, I think the aim assist on both are exactly the same, but the reason why aim assist on a console might feel weaker is just because you're going to get a max of 60 frames, which means that you're going to have a lot worse input lag, which will make that aim assist feel weaker when it's really just a matter of how much input lag you are trying to fight. I also want to preface this video by saying I refer to controller players and PC players a lot when I really mean to say controller players and mouse and keyboard players. So just bear with me. I try to correct myself the best I can, but realize that I'll slip up every once in a while. Now that we got that out of the way, let's get into my main points. At some point in time in your Fortnite career, I'm sure that you personally or have maybe watched a streamer get completely annihilated while gliding through the air or by just running across the map. A lot of times this is attributed to controller aim assist, and while I do think that aim assist needs a nerf, you also have to remember all of the advantages that a PC player has, namely scroll wheel reset. Anyone that wants aim assist to be nerfed, namely PC players, also has to be ready for scroll wheel reset to be nerfed as well. To think that scroll wheel reset is not also in and of itself completely broken is a complete joke. The fact that a lot of PC players, even average players, are able to do a peanut butter edit, jump, shoot, and reset it before another player has time to react is completely insane. Controller players simply cannot pull off this technique nearly as fast or as well as a PC player, all because of scroll wheel reset. And with box fighting being such a huge part of the competitive scene and honestly just normal gameplay, it's unbelievable to me that we don't hear more controller players complaining about this attribute that PC players have gotten away with for as long as I can remember. Now, in the case of box fighting, it is very common to see a controller player try to exploit into someone else's box so they can completely spray down someone with an SMG. And while of course this is frustrating, especially if you're on the receiving end, but you have to remember the reason they do this is because it is actually the safest way for them to play. Think about it. A controller player knows they're not able to compete with a PC player's ability to edit and reset to take cheeky shots at them. So, the way they perfectly counter this playstyle is by exploiting into someone's box, forcing a 50-50, which they'll most likely come out on top on because of their aim assist. And while this seems cheap, you just have to realize this is the safest way for them to play, otherwise they're going to be a lot more likely to die. Every time a PC player goes up against a controller player where the controller player tries to play like a PC player, it's going to usually not end very well for them. They're going to be out-edited and out-maneuvered because the PC player is just able to do more with a mouse and keyboard than a controller player can, especially when they don't have scroll wheel reset. Now, of course, there are always exceptions to the rule. There are many controller players that can still edit exceptionally well, but the average controller player against the average PC player will not be able to edit nearly as quickly as that PC player with scroll wheel reset. And while this is so incredibly frustrating, it actually makes sense for this to be the case. Controller players have almost never been able to compete with PC players. I'm pretty sure there was only 2 or 3 controller players that even qualified for the World Cup, and the rest out of 100 players were PC players. That is incredibly stupid. And I think this was a wake-up call for Epic, because at the time there were so many disadvantages a controller player had against a PC player, so they decided to buff controller players in multiple ways, one of which ended up being aim assist, so they could compete with the superior aim that PC players had. And I already know what you guys are thinking. PC players have to work extremely hard to get aim as good as a controller player. And while I believe this to be true, at the same time, controller players have to work extremely hard to have their edits on par with that of an average PC players, because they don't have the benefits of scroll wheel reset, which save us from so many situations on PC. And I really do mean it. Scroll wheel reset saves us from so many dire situations where we almost get killed, but the reason we're able to escape is because we can quickly edit and make new boxes while also resetting the wall behind us to ensure that the player has a harder time to track us down and a harder time to spray through our builds. And if my mouse and keyboard players still don't believe me, I want you guys to go ahead and disable scroll wheel reset and do a couple box fights against other players to see just how much of a safety net scroll wheel reset provides for you guys. So at the end of the day, while I still think that aim assist should be nerfed, I also believe that if mouse and keyboard players want to see a significant nerf to aim assist, we also have to be prepared to get rid of our precious scroll wheel reset. However, I think we can compromise on the subject. I don't think that aim assist needs to inherently be nerfed in the way that most people think. I don't think we just need to make it less strong. What I believe needs to happen is that controller players need to experience the same amount of recoil that a PC player does. While I am grateful that mouse and keyboard players recently got a nerf to this, at the same time it doesn't make sense to me that a controller player gets to experience zero recoil while a PC player has to still experience any at all. But I don't think the solution is to make mouse and keyboard players experience zero recoil. Otherwise, we would start seeing everyone get lasered out of the sky. It'd be a lot easier for people to get absolutely beamed from either input device, and I don't think this should happen. I think people should be rewarded for practicing their aim every day, and therefore the recoil should be consistent across both. However, instead of it being just taken away from mouse and keyboard players, it should simply be added to the same degree to controller players. In turn, this will nerf aim assist. A controller player would then have to actually practice their aim every single day to have the same level of accuracy as they do now, because now they'll be having to fight the actual recoil, which in turn will make their aim less accurate. This is the exact same thing a PC player experiences and has to deal with every time they track someone while they're running or in the air. However, this doesn't change scroll wheel reset for mouse and keyboard players. To fix the major advantages a mouse and keyboard player has over a controller because of scroll wheel reset, I think that Epic needs to add a way for controller players to also have this ability. In the past, people have made videos of getting something like scroll wheel reset on a controller, but they have to use macros to do this. And if you don't already know, macros are illegal in a competitive setting and you can get banned for using it. Another possible solution is to see controller manufacturers actually add a scroll wheel to a controller. I don't really know how this looks on paper, but I imagine this is extremely difficult to incorporate into a controller. At some point though, I think it'd be really cool if we saw this added to a controller, and it would just make the controller versus mouse and keyboard a lot more balanced. So at the end of the day, this is my opinion on aim assist. And also, we need to stop hating so much on controller players. It'd be absolutely absurd to expect a controller player not to utilize it to its max potential. I mean, I know I use every single advantage I can on a mouse and keyboard to give myself the upper hand, so we should expect controller players to do the same thing with aim assist. And also, you have to remember that the reason aim assist is this strong is because of Epic Games. So getting mad at the controller player is just misplaced frustration when we really should be mad at the people who put it there in the first place. And I just want to reiterate one more time that I don't think that aim assist should be made less strong. I just think that recoil needs to be added to controller players so that we're on equal playing fields with them. So at the end of the day, I want to know what you guys think. Did you agree with my points or disagree? And let me know why I am right or wrong. I love to read about your opinion on the matter. Until then, I'll see you guys in the next one.